Welcome to the deep dive. Now, if you work anywhere structured, you definitely know the word escalation.
Oh, yeah.
And it usually means, filing forms, maybe sending an email up the chain because a budget's blocked or a deadline's slipping.
Right. It's pretty procedural, predictable, maybe even a little dull sometimes.
Totally dull.
Yeah. And when we talk about escalation like that, the traditional way, we're basically talking about unsticking a process.
Right.
It's just a tool to get eyes on a task that's stalled.
Like you hit a tech snag, you bump it up from tier 1 to tier 2 support.
Exactly. It's purely transactional.
But, okay, here's the thing. Our sources today, they're kind of tearing up that whole transactional playbook.
They really are.
We're diving into a scenario that, well, it flips the whole organizational chart upside down. What happens when the escalation isn't about a stalled project or, some technical glitch,
Yeah.
but when the actual immovable blockage is the manager?
Ah, okay. Yes. That is the core conflict we're tackling today. When the very person who's supposed to be clearing the path, removing roadblocks, is actually the roadblock themselves. So our mission, really, is to unpack what our source calls true leadership for that specific moment.
Okay.
And it's leadership that's rooted not just in, being good at your job, but in deep humility and radical accountability.
Okay, let's definitely unpack that shift, because the difference between a process problem and a person problem, it's astronomical, right?
It's night and day. If I have a procurement issue, okay, I know who to call. But if my boss is the problem, well, the rules just completely change.
They do. You have to shift focus. It's not about tasks anymore. It's about the structure. The source puts it really simply. Sometimes the blockage is a person. And these often shows up not as someone being deliberately mean or malicious,
Right.
but more like friction that comes from a leader's blind spot. Maybe their decision-making is slow or they just won't delegate properly. And when that happens, for the team members who are sort of grinding against that friction, the problem isn't really their skills or their workload or even market conditions.
No.
The issue is fundamentally how they are being led. They're struggling because the pipe they need to push work through is clogged right at the top.
And this brings us to I think the absolute core shift for anyone who's leading people or wants to. Escalation, in this context, it stops being about solving, little procedural headaches.
Okay.
It becomes about trust.
Yep.
It becomes about humility. And it becomes about accountability. When the process stalls because of you, the leader, well, the system is basically testing you.
Testing how?
Testing whether you can put the organization's needs above your own ego. That right there, that's the true measure of your leadership integrity according to the source.
Okay, so if that's the ideal, what does failure look like, in practice? What signs should people listening look out for if they suspect maybe they are the blockage or perhaps someone they report to?
Right. Well, we're talking about leaders who, and this is often unintentional, they end up actively sabotaging the business.
Sabotaging, wow.
Yeah, because they confuse their authority with being infallible. They think they're protecting the company, but really they're just stifling its ability to,
Right.
adapt and grow.
We pulled out 3 specific destructive actions these leaders tend to take, and I think we should dig into these because honestly they sound alarmingly common.
They can be.
Okay, first one, they cling to ego.
Yeah, clinging to ego. That means they basically treat their job title, their spot on the org chart, as proof that their view is always the best one.
So they don't really engage with ideas.
No, they often just dismiss them from that position of power. The source mentions the leader who has to approve every tiny decision. Not because it's risky, but because they need to be the center of everything.
And that just slows everything down.
Massively. Which compounds with the second action. They actively silence feedback.
And this isn't just ignoring an email, right?
No. It's about creating an environment where bad news literally cannot travel upwards safely.
How does that happen?
Well, it's kind of the yes man culture, but it can be more subtle. The leader might unconsciously punish the messenger, maybe not fire them, but subtly freeze them out of cool projects, question their loyalty maybe, or shoot down their data in a meeting.
Oof.
Yeah. So the team learns really fast. If you want to get ahead, you bring sunshine and optimism, even if the reality is quite different.
And that sounds like it ties directly into the third failure point, seeing any kind of internal challenge or escalation as disloyalty.
Exactly. If a team member suggests a different way or points out a big flaw in the leader's plan, it gets treated like a personal attack, not like useful input.
Right.
And that reaction, That's the purest sign of ego becoming the blockage. Because great leaders, they get it. They understand that escalation, whether it's someone challenging them directly or just asking for resources that their policy is blocking.
Yeah.
It isn't a threat. It's actually a mirror.
A mirror.
Yeah, it reflects exactly where they need to adjust, where they have a blind spot, or maybe where their own system is making life harder for the people doing the actual work.
That's a really interesting distinction between, like, justifying yourself versus reflecting.
Absolutely.
When a leader shuts down pushback, they're trying to prove their past decisions were right. But if they see it as a mirror,
Then they're focused on improving the future. They see feedback as just crucial data, not some kind of moral judgment on them.
which brings us to, I think, the really critical takeaway for you, the listener. Whether you manage one person or, thousands, leadership isn't about being right. That's just the ego talking. True leadership is about being responsible.
Yes.
Even if that responsibility means having the guts. And it really takes guts to look in that mirror and admit, okay, right now, I am the obstacle.
That admission, I am the obstacle.
Yeah.
That's precisely where we pivot towards this idea of ultimate accountability.
Right. This idea of turning organizational escalation into, like, personal evolution.
Yep.
It sets an incredibly high bar.
It does. It requires genuine humility in action, not just saying the right words.
So it demands action to back up that phrase, if I'm the problem, I'm also the solution.
Exactly. That's what separates real accountability from just being defensive. It means you commit to changing the system, starting with yourself, even if that means, showing some previous flaws.
Okay, but let's push back a bit here. That sounds great, noble even. But in most companies, realistically, doesn't admitting I am the problem sound a lot like admitting failure?
You could feel that way.
And isn't admitting failure sometimes, career suicide?
Right.
Why would any leader willingly make themselves that vulnerable?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And this is where the source material gets, astonishingly radical, I'd say.
How so?
Because the leader essentially faces two bad choices. Wait for their blocked, frustrated team to finally risk their own careers going over the leader's head.
Risky for them.
Very. Or wait for the whole situation to fester and cause long-term damage. Or they take the initiative.
Okay, what initiative are we talking about here? This sounds dramatic.
It kind of is. The source suggests something truly unexpected. The true leader doesn't wait for the pushback to boil over. Instead, the leader escalates himself to the higher authorities.
Wait, what? They actively ask their own boss to review their performance.
Essentially, yes.
They basically say, hey, I'm sensing some friction here, and I suspect I might be the cause. Could you please investigate me?
That's pretty much it. And this act of self-escalation, it's incredibly powerful because it directly addresses that core power imbalance we talked about.
Yep.
The leader voluntarily invites scrutiny from above. They step out of that defensive crouch and essentially say, look, my top priority is the team's success, even if that means my role needs to change.
Wow. Okay, but I'm still trying to grasp the practical benefit for the leader taking what seems like a massive personal risk. Doesn't this just fast-track them to getting sidelined?
It's a valid concern. The source argues that yes, the short-term risk feels high, but the long-term benefit, both for the leader's own integrity and the organization's health, is invaluable.
Okay, tell us more about those benefits then. Why take that leap?
Well, the source points to 4 major outcomes that make this self-escalation so effective and maybe even necessary when there's serious friction.
Yeah.
First, it's a profoundly humble act. It declares vulnerability publicly. It shows the whole organization that leadership isn't infallible.
So it lowers the fear factor for everyone else giving feedback.
Instantly. It models the very behavior you want from your team.
Okay, makes sense. Second,
and this is critical for the team, it sends a crystal clear signal that their struggles are being heard. It validates their experience without forcing them to take the career risk of complaining about their boss. The leader took the risk for them.
Gotcha. And the third benefit is more structural. It gets the higher-ups involved.
Yes, exactly. It gives the leader's own supervisors, the higher authorities, a clear opportunity and, frankly, a mandate to get involved.
So they know what's going on.
They're aware, they become accountable too, and they can step in early before that systemic friction becomes a total disaster. It shifts the issue from being some hidden internal squabble to being a visible organizational priority.
And finally, number 4.
Finally, this whole process lets those supervisors objectively determine if the leader has to change for the good of the team. for the good of the whole organization.
It takes the decision out of the leader's potentially defensive hands.
Precisely. Which is maybe the ultimate act of humility in this context.
Yeah.
It removes that subjective self-defense bias.
Yeah.
If the structure above you confirms, yes, you are actually the problem here, well, now you have clear, objective data telling you change is non-negotiable.
And that's how you turn a blockage into evolution.
Exactly. Evolution not just for the team, but for your own growth as a leader, too.
Wow. Okay, we've covered a huge amount of ground here. We started off thinking about escalation as, that dry procedural thing for managing projects.
Yeah, the transactional bit.
And we've ended up seeing it as maybe the ultimate test of leadership integrity, culminating in this pretty radical idea of the leader taking this step of essentially volunteering for self-scrutiny from their own bosses.
And if you zoom out, connect this to the bigger picture, behavior like that, it fundamentally shapes a healthy, sustainable company culture.
How so?
When leadership genuinely models vulnerability and self-correction, when they basically say, the health of this system matters more than my personal comfort or security, it creates an environment where everyone feels safer.
Safer to give honest feedback.
Safer to give honest feedback, safer to take risks, safer to evolve. It builds that really deep foundational trust that, let's be honest, you just can't buy with bigger bonuses or fancier perks.
That's a powerful point. It really does change the game.
It does.
Okay, so to wrap up, here's our provocative thought for you, the listener, to kind of chew on. If true leadership sometimes means self-escalation when you suspect you might be the problem, well, this raises a really important question about how we even measure success in management. How do you measure a leader's real worth? Is it by how smoothly their projects run with no apparent friction? Or is it maybe by the courage they show when they voluntarily hold up that mirror to themselves for the good of everyone else?
A tough question.
Definitely something to think about. We'll let you take that one with you.